I asked people on Blue Sky and in Discord servers to each pick 5 colors, and I challenged myself to make a single illustration with only those colors. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Yelsa, an artist who primarily focuses on digital art, but as of last year started focusing a lot more on my traditional art growth. And this channel was created to help document that journey alongside of a couple of other things along the way. Today's video is a little bit different than my usual art process content. As I said earlier, I asked friends to pick 5 random colors for me, and I would have to make a painting using only those colors, with a couple of exceptions. To do this, I numbered my 36 gouache set and asked them to pick 5 numbers 1 through 36. From there, I would pick those 5 colors, swatch them, and then make a final painting with them, and I was allowed to mix them however I wanted. The exception: I was allowed to use any of my pens to use as an accent color if I wanted to, so that included my red, blue, silver, gold, and white pens, or my black pen if I wanted to line something, if need be. Otherwise, I was only allowed to use those 5 colors selected for me. I wanted to challenge myself to do this because I have a tendency to only pick colors in my comfort zone, so to try to expand my color selection and maybe dabble a little bit more in color mixing, I set this challenge up. So let's get on with the show. Painting number 1. So the first painting I had to use the following colors: 15 olive green, 22 crimson, 24 pink, 30 violet, and 36 ultramarine. Now I actually quite like these colors, but I don't use any of them often besides ultramarine and violet. If you've been on this channel before, you would know that blue is actually one of my most commonly used colors in my artworks. It was so bad that I actually challenged myself to not use blue as a main color in my art for a whole sketchbook. Now, because of that, I was not going to let blue be the main color in whatever composition I chose. But don't worry, I give in the future. The first thing I did after picking the colors was swatch them and find the different combinations I can make with these colors. Now, this is probably not the best swatching method, but it's what I went with here and for the rest of this journey. I instantly love that olive green. That's not a color I use often, but I have used crimson quite a bit as well. Pink is not a color I gravitate to either, but I was ready to challenge myself to use it. The first thing I decided to do was do a painting in my sketchbook with these colors. I went for grapes first and then a bird. Now there's honestly not too much to say about these two paintings. Honestly, when I was painting the grapes, I was a little bit disappointed because I couldn't get the contrast that I was looking for here, and obviously messed up my color mixes a little bit, so It's alright. They don't actually look like grapes to me anymore. I don't know what they look like. A bushel of some fruits, probably poisonous. The bird was honestly more of a doodle. I just wanted to use the paints, and honestly, you'll see throughout this challenge that one of the ways to actually clear out my whole palette is to actually just splash the paint on the paper and do something with it so that I can start with a clean mix when I actually do the real illustration. Speaking of, as for the full illustration, I must admit that my first thought when I saw these colors for some reason was Evan Earl. If you don't know who Evan Earl is, he is well known for his very unique style, but mostly for his time working as a background artist for Disney. I absolutely love his style, and obviously I'm not going to achieve that here, but the inspiration was there. You can see it a little bit in the thumbnail I'm currently working on, and that was inspired a little bit by his forest works, particularly Purple Sunset. I obviously do not have all the colors for it, but I enjoy the process nonetheless. in all, I think the painting isn't so bad. It was not a color combination that I would gravitate to on my own, but I had a lot of fun experimenting with these colors. I think the hardest part was, just as always, making sure the colors didn't look muddy together, and the values were distinctive enough. I really wanted to make sure that pink was the highlight color, and to be honest, I've been using pink as a highlight color quite a bit recently with my challenge with my Arteza paints, where I only really had pink as the brightest color in my whole color palette because I used up the rest of my colors. So, what do you think? On to painting number 2. The second painting, I have the colors 22 Crimson again, 4 Orange Yellow, 11 Magenta, 18 Mild Green, and 8 Yellow Mid. Crimson makes a reappearance here, like I said, and I get to use 2 of my favorite colors in this set, green and yellow. Going into this, I knew these colors kind of had an autumnal vibe as I was swatching and mixing the colors, but I didn't want to stick with that. The second thing that almost instantaneously popped into my head were Pikmin. I'm not sure if it was because the person that picked these colors liked Pikmin or because I had recently gone through my old zine art and was looking at my Pikmin X Minish Cap piece that I still love and thought about how I would like to make another piece like that one day. But alas, that was what I went for. After I did an obligatory messy Kaze sketch because these colors also reminded me of him, I went ahead and started working on some free-handed Pikmin. So behold, these messy Pikmin. I would just do the red Pikmin. The colors I had would go perfect for it if it was just painting Pikmin, but if I wanted a background too, I needed to make sure the colors did not blend together, so the yellow honestly could not be used as a Pikmin color. The crimson stood out well enough from the rest of the colors, so I knew I could use that for the Pikmin, so I decided the yellow was going to be for a sunset. The magenta would go to some of the flowers and also help build depth within the Pikmin, and obviously green for grass. I could have outlined the Pikmin if I wanted to, but I decided I kind of wanted to stick with the freehand and just use the paint to make them stand out instead of having to line everything. Something I learned while working on this was a way to better improve my colors so that they are harmonious. Obviously, these colors aren't too terribly contrasting in terms of value and saturation, but just in their raw state, the colors really don't mesh entirely too well for the overall composition. They will look fine, but certain parts would look jarring since the green leans a little bit more on the cooler side, and so does the magenta compared to the warmth of the yellows and the crimson. So using only these 5 colors to achieve harmony was a nice little challenge with these paintings, and Overall, I actually quite like how it came out. What do you think of this one? Painting number 3. Now, I have to admit, I think these 5 colors were my favorite to work with out of all the colors I was given. This one consisted of 5 orange red, 27 burnt umber, 1 titanium white, which I switched for my Winsor & Newton permanent white since I was out of titanium white, 33 cerulean blue, and 17 sap green. Now, upon initial inspection, it probably seems like there's nothing special going on here, which I would agree with, but I really fell in love with these colors when I was doing the color mixes, specifically the pastel colors I got from mixing the colors with white. Those were the colors that inspired my painting. When I first saw them, I was immediately reminded for some reason of my D&D character Myrthin, who is a trident fighter with a color scheme pretty similar to those colors. So I knew immediately I had to do something water-based, which, if you know me, you know I gravitate to water paintings all the time, so this just let me sit comfortably within my comfort zone. I think this is also one of my favorites from this set of paintings because I love these colors so much. I actually spent quite a bit of time just playing around the sketchbook spread, just painting. But I eventually moved on to the actual painting. Now, the painting was inspired by the idea of there being a small island out in the ocean with a little mysterious shrine there. Who knows what secrets are hidden there? I think I was once again drawn to this concept not only because of Myrthin and her backstory, but also because I've recently been thinking about Wind Waker and how I would love to play it again, and maybe we'll get a Wind Waker remaster in the future here soon for the 40th year anniversary. Another inspiration was one of my very first gouache paintings I did in my first sketchbook of 2024, which was the first sketchbook I had picked up in literally years, which was just a simple sakura tree on a lake. I love this one, and I think this might be my second favorite of the 5. Not to say I don't love all of them, but this color palette spoke to me, and shockingly, I don't choose these colors often. I think probably because I'm still trying to stay away from using blue, and of course this painting is mostly blue. Like I said before, I give in. But it's okay. What do you think of this one? Painting number 4. Confession time. While I really love these colors and they are once again my favorite colors, yellow and green, I had no clue what to paint with these. You would think that I would, since I have a sketchbook that I'm working on currently that strictly uses yellow and green as the main colors in a composition, but I really had no clue what to do here. The colors this time around here were 6 deep yellow, 9 lemon yellow, nice, 4 orange yellow, 20 Prussian blue, and 18 mild green. Now, these numbers were picked very specifically, thank you, but I was at a loss. It had been 2 weeks since the last painting, and I wanted to get them done within a month. I did the first one January 30th, but I was stumped. While doing the swatching, which I horribly messed up at the beginning with the numbering, all of the colors, but I wasn't getting immediately inspired until I thought about maybe doing some yellow-orange flowers and some leaves in the background, which you see in the thumbnail. I also thought maybe adding some cute bees on top would be a nice little piece, and while that is absolutely what I intended on doing, when I finally picked up my Arches block of watercolor paper, that is absolutely not what I did. I should have done that. It wouldn't have looked so similar in concept to my last painting. But when you don't know what to do and you're not confident in your composition, what do? You fall back to what you're comfortable with. And for me, that is water and sky paintings. Arguably what I fall back to every time when I want to paint or draw and I just don't know what to do, so I paint some clouds and maybe some water. They are some of my favorite paintings that I've done, but I truly was trying to go out of my comfort zone every now and again with this, and that simply did not happen. And because I had already fallen back to my comfort zone with my last painting, I was particularly disappointed with this. Like the effect of the grass on the sides though. It kind of reminds me of Impressionist paintings. I did include flowers and I did include the bees, but they are not the focal point like they were supposed to be. It's not a bad painting per se, but it's a disappointing one because why didn't I just paint the flowers like I was originally going to? Honestly, the world may never know. Final painting, and this one is an interesting one. These numbers were also picked very specifically, and because of that, I knew I had to paint something related to that, but we'll come back to that. The colors chosen were 13 yellow-green, 14 deep green, 33 cerulean blue, 22 crimson, and 5 orange-red. The funniest part about these color choices is that the first 3 numbers relate to 2 D&D characters, Kaze and Darius, and while the first 3 are mostly Darius' color scheme, the final 2 colors are, well, Kaze's color scheme. So that really set the tone for this painting, and I think it's quite hilarious that Those colors just happened to truly match them. To be honest, I had no clue what I was going to do, so I started with a kind of tree sketch on the left side of the page, which was mostly just to use up the paint that I created for my swatching, since I was not confident what I was going to use these colors for. When I got to the right side though, it kind of just painted itself. The thumbnail had a very clear idea. A very large snake wrapped around a blazing tree, almost like the tree of life, set upon an eerie green sky. The phoenix that lives by that tree showing itself almost immediately. And without getting into too much detail in terms of character associations, Darius is most commonly associated with snakes, while Kaze is with phoenixes. I won't get into the lore here because it's quite extensive and it's not all figured out, but I guess that's why the painting came to me so easily. And because I had such a clear thumbnail for the composition, the actual painting came along very easily. I think this one came to me the easiest out of all of them. I was confident when I was painting the thumbnail, and that made this painting so much easier. thumbnail, I wasn't entirely sure where I wanted the phoenix to be. Originally he was in the top right corner, but I wanted him to be a little bit more apparent, so I lowered him to be right where the opening in the tree was, revealing that eerie green moon, sky, whatever, but it looks acidic, very fitting for the snake that's probably where he shouldn't be. I worked a very long time on the snake, even gave him some horns so he kind of looks like a dragon hybrid, but honestly, for someone who could never draw snakes or dragons on a first try, the fact that he actually looks like a snake and I didn't have to touch up his face at all really impresses myself. I feel like a tree of life is also very fitting to go alongside a phoenix, and that being one of its probably many homes. Obviously the phoenix would be a bit larger, but I think with this perspective the snake is just quite huge. He can probably make himself bigger too. The phoenix, I mean. Though this kind of feels like a first meeting for these two. Kind of an origin story of sorts, and I think that's why I like this one so much. I had to add some gold as the true pop color alongside my relic pen, and I think that brought this together even more. To be honest, I really love this painting, and I think it might actually be my favorite, and I suppose it's fitting with how easily the composition came to me. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this challenge. None of the colors were particularly challenging to work with, it was mostly just how creative my brain was feeling when I finally picked up the colors. I think yellow and green is one of the hardest color combinations for me, even though they are my favorite colors and I love them together. I can just never quite figure out what to do with them, which is why I have a separate challenge in another sketchbook to use yellow and green as my main colors, or at least one of them. I've been challenging myself a lot this year to really up my understanding of colors, and this challenge also helped, and I would love to do it again. I may do it in the future. And even though I'm not proud of all these paintings, I do love all of them. Unfortunately, the yellow and green one is just not my best work, but I don't hate it. I just know I could do better and those colors could be done some more justice. And I think overall I learned that if you have an idea at the beginning, just stick with it. Don't fall back. I did all these paintings in a month, so I may give myself a bit of a break and make it a quarterly challenge, especially since I've been doing my own separate challenges in other sketchbooks with limited color palettes. And I think these challenges are a lot of fun. It really forces me to think outside of the box to figure out what I can make. In terms of the most challenging colors that I worked with, it was probably my first set of colors with the olive green and the magenta. I don't really use those colors on their own like that, and I definitely don't put them together. But it really pushed me outside the box, and I think the only reason I got through it was because I had some inspiration in front of mind. In terms of the easiest colors, it's probably a tie between the third and final painting. And honestly, my favorite color set was the third painting, and I will go back to use those colors again. But I didn't hate any of the color combinations I got. They all challenged me in their own ways, and I will go back to the fourth set of colors to just push myself to get used to them and maybe do them some justice, like I said. And that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I will definitely be doing this challenge again in the future, so if you want to give me 5 numbers 1 through 36 and a comment down below, maybe I will pick those colors in the future for a future set of these videos. See you all in the next one. Goodbye!